This is Todd Davies. I'm here as an academic visitor at University of Oxford from Stanford University, teaching in the study abroad program there and visiting at Brasenose College. This is February 26, 2020, and I'm out here with a couple of students, one from the Stanford program and one from Trinity College, Oxford, who are doing a strike tour this morning of the pickets that are connected with the University and College Union strike across the UK. And so I'm going to talk with a member of the union who's out on the pickets today to find out more about the strike and about the current situation of lecturers in the UK. So, hi. What is your name?
So I'm Aris Katzourakis. I'm a professor in the university, and I'm here today as the co-president of the Oxford branch of the UCU and sort of central organizer of the pickets.
Oh, wonderful. So, can you tell us more about what the strike is about, how it was called, and what the goals are?
So there are two disputes at the moment.
Yeah.
We're on strike on two separate disputes. One is the USS pensions disputes, and you may have heard about this because we were on a very long strike on USS pensions in 2018.
Right.
It was a 2-week-long strike, and in many ways blocked the move from direct benefits pensions, where people are paid a certain amount every month, to
what we would call defined benefits in the
exactly,
US, yes.
Exactly. So a stock market linked or bond linked pension scheme.
To that. Right?
That's the change.
You are on a defined benefits schedule, what we'd say in the US, and they want to move you to
a DC scheme,
something more like a 401k we would have in the US.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was stopped in 2018. But there have been additional detrimental changes that have been introduced since then, and it seems that this might be coming back on the table. And so we're on strike again on the USS pensions to protect our scheme, but we're also on strike on what we're calling the forfeits disputes, which is essentially a pay and equalities dispute, essentially affecting the terms and conditions of employment. So we're asking for an above-inflation pay rise to make up for over 10 years of real-time pay loss, which the union estimates to be about 20% loss in real earnings if you use the real retail price index, RPI.
Yeah.
We're asking for the gender and ethnic pay gaps to be closed. We're asking for nationwide frameworks to address the problems of casualization, which in this university is close to 80% of all employed staff.
To be like contingently hired or hourly? Or...
So 78% of staff here are essentially on fixed term or atypical contracts, which is way above sector norms. And we're also asking for universities to address the problem of workloads, which are ballooning and have reached the point where they really are intolerable.
Yeah.
So that's the fight.
So we should say, I mean, I know that the lecturers here work extremely hard, and that there's lots of personal attention given to students, especially in Oxford, and so the teaching loads are high by international standards. From what I can
Absolutely.
tell.
For a research-intensive university, they're incredibly high, and across the sector, there are many other universities. Many of the post-92s, for example, which have a larger teaching component, their workloads are also very high. So this is a nationwide dispute addressing the workloads on a nationwide scale. Every institution has its own particularities. I consider the Oxford workload to be outside the norms of the type of university that we are. And what we're asking for is a nationwide framework within which individual institutions could address their local problems in a way which would be measurable and implementable. So rather than getting like a vague commitment from employers that, your workloads are bad, let's fix them, we want some standardized framework where we can measure workloads in a comparable way, and individual institutions can seek to address these problems within a nationwide framework.
Can you say more about the pay gap?
So there are pay gaps. There is a gender pay gap.
Yeah.
It's quite large. It's around 15% across the board in Oxford. It differs within grades. It differs across different types of job. So, for example, we have a really striking underrepresentation of women in leadership roles in highly paid top jobs, and that's a real problem which we think really should be addressed. But also within grades. So, for example, in the main teaching and research grade, associate professor grades, even within grades, you also see imbalances in salaries. So we want both those imbalances to be addressed within levels, but also the underrepresentation of women in senior positions.
Yeah.
And there are similar gaps associated with ethnicity. There are very few BAME academics in very
For the U.S. audience,
positions.
that's
Black and minority ethnic.
yes.
And that's a real problem. They're very underrepresented, and similarly within grades are also generally underpaid. And we don't think that there are. Universities do say things about the pay gaps, especially the gender pay gap. We have the Athena Swan exercises, for example, but they don't translate into much.
Can you say what that is?
So the Athena Swan is a kind of accreditation scheme in the UK, where it has gold, silver, and bronze levels, and different degrees of action to address the problems of being a good employer. For example, give you different levels of accreditation. But for example, all it takes to be bronze accredited is to say that you recognise there are pay gaps, and so a lot of departments take a lot of pride in their accreditation, but we don't feel that does enough to translate into concrete action to close these gaps.
How can these pay gaps happen if there's a scale there? What's the mechanism by which that's occurring?
I mean, here we're entering into personal sort of speculation about the societal basis for the problems.
Sure.
I mean, that there are structural inequalities, there are implicit biases, and there are, I personally would put the structural inequalities as being the most important part of how these gaps are generated. There are things to do with implicit bias that can be addressed with training and that sort of thing, but I personally don't think that's enough.
Yeah. So you mentioned the loss in pay over the last 10 years, which I think is due to the austerity at the national level, right? Mainly,
I think it does form parts of the austerity narrative. And in some ways, universities use that narrative to justify themselves to us. Everyone is tightening their belts. We have to do that here too. The reality is that university pay rises are falling behind public sector pay rises. So we're not keeping up with the public sector. And so we believe the level of the real pay drop goes beyond a comparator, which would be the public sector.
And can you talk about the cost of living for lecturers in university towns like Oxford over that period?
So, I mean, Oxford is a very exceptional place to live. It's probably as expensive as living in parts of London. And we don't have the London weighting for our salaries. And the average pay in Oxford is not any higher than that in any other Russell Group university. In fact, you see very senior academics in Oxford, professorial grade academics who you just wouldn't expect would ever leave a chair in Oxford, actually go to other universities in the UK or abroad for better paid positions because of the cost of living.
So it's continuing here. So the strike is a nationwide action, but voted for by the membership at each university, as I understand it. So you get at least 50% of union members at a university voting to strike, and there are, about 70 of them, or some, universities across the country that are striking?
That's right, yeah. So we've done something called a disaggregated ballot.
Yeah.
And it's a result of the trade union acts that have been passed in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
So every single institution is balloted independently on both of the two disputes,
mm-hmm.
and any institution that makes the legal threshold of 50% participation in the postal ballots plus a majority of members vote in favour,
mm-hmm.
will be out on strike on either of the two disputes. So there are about 74 or 75 universities that are out on strike on one or the other or both of the two disputes.
And the two disputes are?
The USS pensions dispute and the four fights dispute, the
mm-hmm.
pay and conditions of employment one.
Yeah.
And at the moment, UCU has taken a decision for the days of strike action
mm-hmm.
for the two disputes to be shared. So all universities, whether they're on strike for one, the other, or both of the disputes, are coming out on strike on the same days,
yeah.
in a kind of show of solidarity between the disputes.
And so the UCU, the union, is negotiating with a body that represents universities. Do you want to say more about that and how that negotiation happens?
So the UCU is negotiating with two separate bodies,
uh-huh.
One for each of the two disputes. So there is UCEA,
uh-huh.
which is the body that sets our pay and conditions of employment, and that's the body we're negotiating with on the full fights disputes. Mm-hmm. And there is UUK, which is a representative of a body that represents university vice-chancellors primarily, mm-hmm.
And
they are who we're negotiating with on the USS pensions disputes. As of a few weeks ago, we had final offers from both bodies,
mm-hmm.
and despite that, on Monday there was an additional meeting, probably as a result of the strike action with UCA, and unfortunately our negotiators are bound by confidentiality and they can't tell us very much about how that meeting went.
I see.
But we do know that it's an additional meeting and that conversations are ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And today there will be a meeting between UCU and UUK, which is the USS pensions body. Mm-hmm. So there are additional meetings that are happening during the strike action because of the strike action, and we hope they go well, and we hope for an early resolution to this dispute.
All right, so for the recording, we're at, this is one of, I understand, 6 sites in Oxford, right, that are being picketed this morning, and there look to be about more than around 30 or so union members who are out picketing. What do you hope that the pickets will accomplish, and are you talking to students and passersby and others who are learning about the strike?
So, I mean, the pickets are a very visible demonstration of the strike. There are obviously more people on strike than are physically at the pickets.
Yes.
But through the pickets, we hope to make our action visible, to draw attention to the cause, to talk to people, to persuade people, to exert pressure on our own management, to in turn exert pressure on the bodies in which they sit to end the disputes, and I think they see us, and that does influence them, to strengthen the hand of our negotiators who see us all out here in support, and of course to recruit people into the cause. You can join a picket on the picket line, become a member, stand on the picket, and show material support for the cause there and then. So it's a very effective tool in exerting pressure.
All right. Thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
This is Todd Davies in Oxford, signing off.